Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're considering improving your mental game, go to our deals page and get 20% off the peak performance products. Also, we want to hear your story on the podcast. So if you have a story to share, go to letsgotennis.com/my story, and you could have your story featured on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today is Mental Training for Peak Performance with Dr. Patrick Cohn. This week we answer the question, how do you know if you can benefit from mental performance training? So, Doc, is this question as obvious as it sounds? Is it simply, how do I know if I can benefit from this? How do I answer that question?
Well, we do exclude some people that maybe aren't trying to better their game. In other words, if you're not taking lessons, then it doesn't make sense really that you would add the mental component to the game. So just from a performance enhancement standpoint, it's the people that are competitive, are taking lessons, want to improve their game, but realize that maybe the mental game is their weakest link out there. And well, how do you know? I mean, that's the big question that we want to talk about is how do you know that your mental game is your weakest link? And there's many signs that we talk about with athletes and tennis players alike. A big sign is you perform way better in a practice match or just practicing and hitting. Your strokes feel full, they feel smooth, full, they don't feel tight and controlled. And then when you go to a match, all of a sudden now your strokes are tighter, they're more controlled, you're pushing the ball more, maybe a little bit more fear of missing, just playing a safer, more tense, controlled game. That's a telltale sign for us that it's a mental game issue, has nothing to do with your strokes. If you can't swing out on the ball, then it's really nothing to do with your strokes, it's everything to do with your mind.
And if I'm looking at how I play versus how I practice, which was a question that came up in another conversation recently, I said, hey, I've got just the guy for that question. What we would do as a tennis coach is we would tell that player, adult, child, doesn't matter. We'd tell that player they need more practice matches where you'd play a match where there's less pressure. You're not playing in a league or a tournament or for money, which doesn't happen all that often. But you'd play more practice matches where you'd have that third training, a third practice matches, and a third actual competitive matches. Is that something you would be able to get involved in? Is that something that mental training kind of fits into that space as well?
Well, that's not our solution. That would be an instructor solution, and
Okay.
that's a good start because you know playing those practice matches outside of league play would be the closest thing that you could get to the league play, and it's going to allow you to work on being able to swing out on the ball, play freely, play your normal game in those particular situations. And I know, the academy mindset, and I'm familiar with the academy mindset. My daughter played for 10 years here in Central Florida, is work on stroke, technique, service. You work on all the individual components, but they don't work that much, very little on actual playing and tactics, right? So, and that's challenging for those young athletes that are in those academies where it's all about working on strokes. And it should be 10 and under, it certainly should be, but they still need some opportunity to just play practice games and practice points and practice sets. Very important, so that they can transfer that out to the matches that they play in.
Yeah, that academy concept of just stroke production, I remember multiple points in my career from young player to college player to young coach to experienced coach. I see a lot of that where you look out and I'll have somebody say, oh my gosh, those guys are really good. Look how good they are. I said, yeah, but we're not going to have a problem beating them. because they look good on the court. The strokes are there, everything looks great, but that's all they have is good strokes. There's no strategy, there's no tactic, there's nothing more. It's just almost mindless swinging. And mindless is kind of a harsh way to put it, but there's nothing more. There's nothing complex. There's no chess about it. And I guess what I'm wondering is if I were to do this all out and you were to say, okay, there's some people that you say, nah, you're not really into this. You're not really all in. You're not taking lessons. You're not really trying to get better. You're not going to bother working with me. But if I say, hey, my coach tells me I need to play more practice matches, could I invite you then? Let's assume I live in Central Florida. Could I invite you then to come out and work with me in that method? Or do you have something completely different? And what does that even look like is kind of my question. What does that mental training look like to get me from really good looking tennis player to winning?
Yeah, and we never
Without
we never
revealing your
want,
secrets.
well, no, we never want to promise, oh, well, work on your mental game and you're going to win more, but working on the mental game is going to improve the confidence and the focus and the trust and some of that matched anxiety. So we ask for videos is what we do because a lot of our clients are spread around the country, honestly. And so we ask for match videos if available when we're working with juniors or professionals. We can go on and we can find that online, that's there. So that's important to observe from a mental coach perspective. It's important to observe. Our process would be much different because our process would be, Shaun, we want to know what is changing when you go from that practice situation to the match court. We want to know exactly what's the underlying challenges there. Is it trying to be too perfect? Is it trying too hard? Is it fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of letting down a partner? I mean, there's many different challenges, but ultimately, if you can't take it to the match court, it's some type of fear of failure, typically, or some type of perfectionism that's getting in the way, where athletes are stuck in what we call a practice mindset. And you might have seen that in some of your coaching, where I worked with one of my clients yesterday that was in that mold, very stuck in a practice mindset. When he's in his serve, he's got 5 different mechanical cues he's working on in matches.
Yeah, you can't do that in a match, right? You have to just be in the zone. You gotta believe in it.
Right. So I've been helping him simplify, obviously, his service process and thinking, but that's where we like to start. We like to start with, well, what is changing between the practice court and the match court? And often it is around fear of failure or perfectionism or worrying about what others think.
It's amazing what happens when you start keeping score. All of a sudden, your brain just explodes. It's like, I can't think anymore. It's just when it's 15:30 and I need to hit that second serve, all of a sudden it doesn't work. When I need to hit that long putt and just get it close, am I thinking about my hips and my elbow and as opposed to just taking a deep breath and hitting the putt? I mean, it's amazing when you start keeping score how different it is.
Well, that's the tendency. When the stuff hits the fan, right? Players go to what they know. They go to the physical. I've got to work my strokes now. I got to work my putting stroke. No, you don't. You have to trust what you've trained so far and what you bring to the court or the course. And so that's a common tendency that we find is when under pressure, it's like then you're trying to do everything. You're trying to make good strokes. You're trying to make a good serve. You're trying to make returns. And often in that trying mode, you're overthinking it. And what Tim Galloway would say, it's too much verbal instructions. It's too much self-coaching, he would say.
Yeah, that internal mind. It makes me think of Yoda. I go to do it or don't do it. Don't try to do something. Because if I'm trying to do something, I'm thinking about how I'm doing it. Other than the fact that I just need to do it and picture it as happening.
Exactly. Just do it is the old Nike slogan.
Sure.
Just do it. Get out of your own way and just do it and don't try to make it happen and overthink it.
That makes a
Exactly.
lot of sense. So back to that original question of how do I know if I can benefit? I can't imagine there's someone out there that wouldn't benefit. If we've got guys like Novak and Sinner and the women in Coco Gauff. I mean, Coco Gauff's still working on her serve toss. I mean, all the things that the people that are superheroes in sport. I can only imagine Tiger Woods, or I don't follow enough golf. Whoever's a great golfer right now is just working on this constantly. How do I know if I can benefit from it is more from the coach point of view for you to be able to decide, are you really serious? So that question is, my answer would be, I can only benefit from it if I'm going to put everything I've got into it, which includes all the other aspects of my game.
Yes, you got to check off all the bases. The technical side, the fitness side, the tactical side, and the mental side.
Okay, so if all four of those, I'm working on it, I'm good to go with that, and that means I can benefit from it. Now, my wife had a question, and I'll let you go with this one because I think this will help my conversation with you, but then also our audience to understand how they could potentially work with you. Because my original thought is, since you're in Florida, you're a coach. I picture coaches as being in person, and you also have some online products. So if I'm in Atlanta, I can only work with your online products. But you talk about clients all around the country, potentially globally. What does that look like if somebody in our audience says, you know what? I'm in. I want this. How do they call you and they say, hey, how do I want that? What does that look like, you working with somebody out of the area?
Yeah, good question. We work with athletes all over the country. I have a team of mental coaches. I'm primarily working with the professional athletes today, but I have some very capable mental coaches that work with the juniors and the college players and the adult players as well. They would simply contact us and we would get them going on the assessments. We start with a couple assessments. In addition, we'll send some background. We want to get some background information from them. And then once we get that information back, we get on Skype or FaceTime or Zoom, and we start the coaching that way. So it's actually works out good for our clients because then there's no travel time for them. Even if they're across town, they can save, an hour, hour and a half drive time to come to see us.
So it is talking. It's not necessarily you on court with your clipboard, judging
No,
my thinking, like looking at me and going, okay, well, there it looked like you got tight, or here it looked like you were thinking about the score. This is a conversation that we're going to have, like a mental tennis lesson over a Zoom call.
yes. Like I said, if we have the match video and then we talk about how it went, how the play is the last week. So we just discuss it, and yeah, it's all just a negotiation and discussing, and we teach mental skills as we talked about in this series. It's just teaching mental skills to be able to play more consistently.
And I can take that into my practice matches that my coach is going to want me to play because that's how the coach is going to respond to that. All right. So last thing, quick case study. A friend of a friend, his name is Taylor, and he may or may not have a last name of Fritz, has this issue where he can't focus on the court. He's focusing on his coach and his girlfriend the whole time. What would you tell him?
I would tell him the moment he steps on the court, he's in a different role. He's in the role of tennis player. He's got to be able to leave that off-court stuff off the court and become the gladiator tennis player. Get in there and get your game face on and park that stuff. You can come back to it in 2 to 3 hours. That stuff off the court will still be there, but that's your time to get totally immersed and enjoy your tennis game when you're on court.
Yeah, and I think I'd probably tell him the same thing, even though I don't know what I'm doing. But I think about all the players now that even conversation you and I had previously, which was the kid focused on the parent or looking up to the coach for approval or whatever it is. I see that on tour now with the rule change of the coaching, and I don't know that that's a good thing, but maybe that's a conversation for another time.
Yes, it is.
I like it. Dr. Cohen, thank you so much. This has been mental training for peak performance, and we will see you again next week. Thank you, sir.
Bye.